This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Matthew Dean Hollis.
So today we have Matthew Hollis. Matthew came from New York City, and thank you for being here today. Matthew is an actor, a carpenter, an accountant, a stuntman, a gymnastic
coach,
coach,
and a personal trainer.
Personal trainer. What else? Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's about it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's a long resume, bro.
Yeah.
And you still are fit and healthy after doing all those things. I don't know if I can handle that kind of stress. So how do you deal with that stress of all these jobs and all these fields?
Well, actually, it's actually stress that got me into that many jobs and fields.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm first off an actor. So when you're acting, life is amazing. You're actually doing the thing you love to do. Then as soon as you quit, or the contract ends or you're done acting, you feel like you're never going to act again.
Right.
So, and every actor says that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where first time I got done acting was a year and a half out of college, and I didn't have anything on the horizon. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to help my friend build their house. So that's how I got into carpentry.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
And I had actually done that through high school and college too, because I went to a theater program that really enabled us to get into the technical aspects of theater too. So I did carpentry, I did costume design. I've done all those kinds of things.
Yeah. And which I wasn't great at.
Yeah.
I remember. I remember they made us cut plywood and in a program, and then there was a saw there. I got introduced to a saw, and stitching, making a bag or a shirt, because so I was like, it's not relevant to me. I wasn't really into that, but that's great. Great. So wait, you went to college, you mentioned, but where was it all? Where was it started? Where were you born? And let's talk about your early childhood first.
Yeah, so I was born in New York City. Lived on 35 East 35th Street for the first 7 years of my life.
Did you go to school there?
I did.
How was that? See, a lot of folks who don't live in mega cities like New York or Chicago, they have a different idea of life because they take a school bus through fields and houses and all. But the city is different. So,
So actually, the lower school I went to was across the street from my apartment.
Oh, wow.
So I would wake up and then cross the street.
So when you say lower school, elementary?
Yeah, no. Elementary school. Yeah. So I was there for the first, I think, up until second grade. Or first grade, actually. And then I moved to the Calhoun School, which is on the Upper West Side. That was just, wake up, get on the train at right near Macy's, and then go uptown to 72nd, and then
so you took one,
get off.
Two,
yep.
or three?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Yeah.
And then get right off. 2 blocks away was Calhoun, and
cool.
And that was pretty cool.
That was your middle school?
Yeah, that was my middle school. Oh. And then for high school, my family, we actually moved out to Long Island because I wanted to play sports. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Because you needed some fields, and then you got introduced to more like car life.
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, because of when we went out there, we didn't realize the whole permit situation and then license. I just thought, you get your license at 18.
Yeah, and then drive.
And all of a sudden, I think it was my sophomore year, all my friends started getting permits. And I'm going, how are you driving? What's going on? And they're like, oh, you just get your permit at 16. Right. You go to driver's school, And I was like, I didn't know that. So I got a late start to the car game.
Oh, which was really wise.
It's fine. Yeah.
Oh, so those of us who don't know, they should know.
Yeah.
Then I got my permit, actually. I had a permit first and then a license. But those of us who don't know, they should know that you got to have a permit. And when you have a permit, you can't drive by yourself.
Yeah.
Then you have to have a parent or somebody with you who is adult enough to supervise you. And then you go in again to the DMV,
Yeah.
and then they issue a license.
Yeah.
So the whole process is there.
It's a whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, when you grew up in the city, now
Yeah.
city itself has an image of people extremely progressive and materialistic or so full of themselves. And some people even say rude and not nice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But what was your life at home? What were the values or the beliefs you grew up with?
So it was always work hard. It was always about working hard and doing good for other people. So a big a story that my dad likes to tell that I also, think encapsulates our family and how we grew up was there's this guy named Curtis that played the steel drums at the 34th Street Penn Station. And every once in a while we would go listen to him for a little bit, give him a couple bucks, and then all of a sudden he started making like CDs. So we would buy his CDs, we'd listen to him play, we'd dance with him, like my sister and I, and then make him a few bucks because now there's two little, cute kids dancing.
Right.
So people are more inclined to give.
More, interested in giving, yes.
But it was one of those things where we had a friendship with this man for about 8 years.
Wow.
And we saw him at the train station, and we would listen to him play, give him a couple bucks.
That's great.
But at the same time, it was one of those things where we're not just being charitable, but we actually care about the person, and we want the best for the person.
And you, if I would choose this language, that although you guys were kids, but your parents encouraged you to go at this person's level, right?
Yeah.
And breaking the norms of this classism. I know we don't like to talk about that. We say, no, there's no such thing. But then we talk about these towns and areas for West Side versus, say, Harlem. And so that was great, making an initiative. But when you say work hard, here you are 3 years old, 4 years elementary school. What was it in terms of its practicality? Making a bed or keeping the house clean, or do you have any examples?
So for us, it was physically working hard, not kind of chores and stuff like that. And I think part of it was because I was such a hyperactive kid that my parents were like, we got to find an outlet for this kid to get his energy out, but an outlet with structure. So they put both my sister and I in ballet and gymnastics. I started when I was 3, and then once Rebecca got to her 3 years old, she started too.
So you did ballet too?
Yeah.
That's why your posture is
perfect.
Not like me. Oh, great.
Yeah, so I did ballet and gymnastics for 9 years, starting from 3 to 12.
So what did your parents do? Like, what was their belief system? How did they cultivate their values?
Yeah. So what they did, my dad likes to say that I'm just like him, because he also has had 17,000 careers in his life. So he was a country western dancer for a living for 7 years. He was a carpenter also. He owned a library. He did all these different things. But when I was growing up, my dad was a salesman for a software development company for doctors, chiropractors, physicians, and whatnot. And then my mom was in the business of teaching people how to use that software and installing it.
You did mention that last time we spoke.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So that's where they were when I was my early years growing up. And I think that's also part of the reason why they wanted me to go into something that was so time consuming. And it wasn't like I would do ballet one day and then do gymnastics the other day. I would do ballet immediately after school for 3 hours. And then I'd get on a bus and go to gymnastics for another 4 hours. And then I get home.
They wanted you to be really exhausted by the time.
Yeah.
So you don't chew up the ears, right? Cool. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, was there any religious piece to your upbringing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your parents?
Yeah, we went to church every Sunday. We went to Marble Collegiate Church, which is down on 31st Street, I believe.
Still there?
No.
Okay. What denomination was that?
That was a Dutch Reformed church. So it's one of the first churches in New York City.
So when you say Reformed, is it more like a Presbyterian Calvinist type, or
Um,
it's
I,
even
I,
different than that?
it's yeah,
Or
it's
Lutheran, or Martin Luther
it's
type.
a totally different
Okay.
thing. Yeah. So it's the Dutch church that when they came to New York, it was New Amsterdam. So they built this church, and it was a Dutch church. And then once the English came and made it New York, they reformed it. So it's a Dutch Reformed church.
Wow.
So it's kind of like,
So there's a history to it.
yeah.
So that's why there's an Amsterdam Street.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't cross from. I was thinking, that's cool.
And Holland Tunnel.
Holland. Yeah, I mean, that's very important tunnel.
Yeah. Which I guess is not the Holland Tunnel anymore. I think it's something else. I think they just changed the name.
Last time when I drove and returned from Jersey, they still had it Holland Tunnel.
Yeah.
But it's
I
been a year or something.
Yeah, I drove, what was it, 2 weeks ago from Kansas City back to New York. And it was the Holland Tunnel, but then it had another, like, quotation mark, something else. I forgot what it said.
Maybe that might be
a
change.
The past couple of years, I've seen a lot of name changes of streets and everything.
Yeah, things are changing. U.S. the whole is very different, and you can speak to that more than me. I on the east side, I think I haven't been there much. I used to go there. I forgot. I remember 3rd Avenue. What street? I don't remember. But to learn violin.
Yeah.
The violin lessons, there used to guy give there, right?
Yeah.
So I used to walk there from 9th Ave. Just like I thought it's a great thing to walk, you know? Just remain fit. And other than that, East wasn't something I have been a lot to. Yeah. So I can't really tell the changes that happened there because I remain mostly on the west side.
It's actually, I actually avoid going to my neighborhood that I grew up in now.
Oh, wow.
Because it makes me so angry.
What happened? What changed?
There are so many little stories of that neighborhood within a 5-block radius of my apartment. Where we would go in and know every single person by name. And hey, how's your day been? How are you doing? Oh, your mom's sick. I'm so sorry for that, you know? And there's an actual real connection that you can build with these people. And a lot of them are mom and pop shops. They're just people who started business who want to create value to the community, you know? Now it's furniture. That's it. There are no real people there. It's all people right out of college or have a bunch of money that are selling you these $1 million sofas that are probably going to break in 4 years. So it's just to go from something that had so much heart to something that is just, it has nothing.
I think Manhattan, it has that kind of image now. And I have a friend who just left New York City yesterday after spending 8 years here. And he was like, I can't live here because I think you got to have 25 grand a month to survive. Everything is so expensive. And depends on your choices too. But it's not the city I think you can have a sense of community anymore, which I would attest to that. Definitely. And I'd like to hear your perspective on that, why people changed, or just humanity changed, or these businesses shifted people's ideas and approach to communal relations and life relationships. But let's go back to this Dutch Reformed church. Did it have a good influence on you guys as kids? So it was a very just like ritual based that didn't really make any sense.
No, I loved it.
Yeah?
I loved it. I connected so much.
In what way?
In the music was the biggest kind of influence on me. Because I am an actor.
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had the organ. We were my sister and I were in the children's choir. So we did Sunday school up until I forgot what age I was, but there was a point at which I said, Dad, I don't want to do Sunday school anymore. I want to go to the actual service.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, I'm sick of reading these
stories,
story books. I want to read the Bible. I want to hear the actual message. I'm ready for more information, and substance. But also part of that is because I love hymns.
Mhm.
I love hymns so
And
much.
hymns, I think, have the deepest theology.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter Lutheran hymns or Methodist
Yeah.
hymns or Anglican hymns or Catholic hymns, but all of them, though, that's something irreplaceable, I think, in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And it's also something that there's such a strong sense of, I guess, community.
Mhm.
Like it's about people who belong and people who can come together to celebrate, to worship,
Mhm.
to be together as a one people.
Mhm.
And it also
To
brought
be
my
there for
family.
each other,
Yeah.
and that I think is missing in my experience. And also, I'm talking about just recent years.
Yeah.
I was telling someone yesterday I don't go to a church anymore
Yeah.
because to me this idea of going to a church is not Christian. And if we read the biblical text, the book of Acts, the New Testament, in particular the epistles, the idea was being a part of a community. You belong there, and then you are there for each other.
Yeah.
So if I go to a church for years and they know, okay, he's Franklin, that's it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't open up. There's not that trust because in order to be vulnerable, you have to have that trust developed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, where you could find yourself in a safe space.
Yeah.
So if that's not there, if I just want to go to listen to a sermon or songs or a hymn, I can do that
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's something is missing. I went to a few churches in the city
Yeah.
and outside the city too.
Yeah.
But I think that's the way it is, and it's
Yeah.
very performance based. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really what you mentioned
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was.
And I think also a lot of it, since we left that church,
Mhm.
we moved to the Upper West Side, and so it was obviously logistically harder to get to on Sunday mornings, especially with kids who are trying to sleep for 12 hours a day. So we were on another hunt for a home church, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult to find a church home that had good theology, but then on top of that had a sense of community where people bought into that community rather than a church where theology's not that great. It's more of a big, what I like to call a beginner church. It's for people who don't really know
Right.
Christ. So
Right.
then it's kind of like a how-to. It's almost like a TEDx talk. Every single sermon is a TEDx talk of, okay, so the Bible's not good enough. So we're going to give you this one little line of the Bible and we're going to tell you how to use it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, calm
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
But then on top of that, there was this new wave of worship music, of kind of that rock for Jesus.
Yeah.
Which to me felt void of the theology of hymns. Like we said, where hymns actually have something to say.
Yeah.
Whereas a rock for Jesus song has one thing to say, and then all the rest of the words are kind of just like.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen around the world. I've
Yeah.
been in different countries and attended churches to see what they're doing. The depth is not there with that music or the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, and which is a sad reality. And I think part of it, this is my understanding, is if you make something easier and in a way relevant, then you can have more people in your auditorium or these auditoriums with neon lights and
there's theater.
music. Yeah. And even like I went to Kuala Lumpur and I witnessed a mega church. I went to Bangkok. I witnessed a mega church, and the way these performers were dressed up and acting out on stage. It was a performance with that smoke machine and lights and all that. But I Love You, Jesus is great. But the repetition, what else? And I think sorry to interrupt, but I think I'm going to make a statement here. I don't think religion, any religion, especially when we talk about monotheistic religions or Christianity, is supposed to be relevant to the pop culture. It just cannot be. And that's, I think, the biggest conflict where a lot of churches, and that's why probably the church is in general dying. It's not really because when church tried to follow people, then for a lot of us would say, okay, what is the difference between me going to a Broadway musical and this? I would rather go to Broadway musical because actors are trained better. They went to Yale, or it's just great. They know how to use light better than church people. And if I were to listen just like, Jesus, I love you, and thanks for giving your life for me. Okay, I know it. If I need a reminder, I can write that somewhere in my bedroom and take a look, right? But the deep reflection, for example, you mentioned you wanted to listen to the actual message and read the Bible. The more you read, you develop more deep and multiple avenues to understand it, and the hermeneutical part is very important, and I think that gets missing if just like it's so shallow.
And that goes back to just like Martin Luther's 95 Theses, Scriptura Solos. If you're not going to read the Bible, then you're missing out on what God is offering you. And then on top of that, hymns are words from the Bible. They're not made up words. They're words from the Bible. So it is Scripture. Whereas these new songs take some of Scripture, but then mostly it's just someone's interpretation. But the whole point is that we have a direct line. So why would we want to go make a non-direct line? That's not helpful for anyone. Right? But also,
because I was going to say, when you said, "Oh, I talked to my dad. Hey, Dad, I want to go to a real church or go to the sanctuary and listen to the message," and I was thinking, I wonder how many kids do that. The percentage might be 0.1, right? Because people fall for easy things, and we see that all the time. Why do we, when we read in the researches and all these kind of people who write and think, they say mostly people like to be told. They don't accept it, but deep down, it's easier. That's why they like someone else to be the leader. And there was a time I was reading a lot about this dating and the psychology of romantic relationships and implications and a lot of that stuff. So one thing was common among all the writers from all over the spectrum, that women in general, and of course I'm generalizing here, I'm talking about these writers and their analysis, if you are planning out a date, especially when the relationship is really new or first time or second time, you just make offers to the woman and you say, would you like to go to Mexican or Italian or this or that, instead of saying, oh, you let me know what you want. Because that gives a different, that gives a different message. That gives like, you don't know what you're going to offer or as a plan and all that. But that is something which also is highlighted, that mostly females, it doesn't matter they're from liberal background or conservative, sociologically, they like the person inviting them to date to be in leadership role. And the same thing with this proposal idea. Still, I think we have a great feminist movement and women who think men can they can do anything almost a man can do. But the percentage of women proposing to men is extremely. It's almost as if it doesn't exist, especially in the West, right? And that's because we all have that easy peasy going on. The same thing happens in the church. How many people think that, okay, you know, a pastor is not doing a great job, I should talk to them, and maybe a person like you. That leads me to another question. Why didn't you become a minister? And let me clarify, I know some traditions, I learned used to minister differently. There's a minister and then there's a pastor or there's an elder. But when I'm using a term minister, I'm using a very standard term, which could be a pastor, could be a preacher, could be an evangelist, but somebody in a role of preaching and teaching.
I actually thought about it.
Really?
Yeah, I thought about it.
How old were you when you thought about that?
Oh, I think I was in high school when I was thinking about it.
And when, how old were you when you guys moved to the Upper West Side?
We were there, moved when I was 7.5, like 7,
Okay.
8. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, did you find a good church there for you that
For
you
me,
really? Okay.
No. For my sister, yes.
Okay.
She didn't like the old timiness
Mhm.
of our home church
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
So she didn't like the hymns.
Mm.
She didn't like the old people. She didn't
Yeah, most
you
of
know?
the people are old.
Yeah. So
yeah.
she didn't like that
Mhm.
traditionalism, I guess is a better way of saying it. She wanted something that felt new, that felt
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we found a church that was more like that, and
Okay.
she enjoyed that.
And you had some sort
I
of
didn't
struggle.
really enjoy that,
Right.
but
And was that the reason you later on in high school you were like, maybe I should become a preacher?
no, actually, so the high school I went to was a private Christian boarding school, and they had
Where
boarding
was that?
and day school. It was in Stony Brook.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literally right across the train tracks from Stony Brook University.
I
So
haven't
it's a
seen the
Stony Brook
university,
prep
but okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it's actually where my dad went,
Ah.
and where my uncle went, and where my cousin went.
Mhm.
So our family has ties to it already.
Mhm.
But the original reason why we went is because I said I wanted to play sports, and our school didn't have sports team,
Mhm.
and I was like, I'm gonna be in high school. I'm sick of being made fun of. I want to play sports so that I can be a man. Toxic masculinity. So
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, so we went out there, and through going there, because it was a Christian school, we had chapel every day.
Mhm.
We had a worship service on Wednesday that was led by the students too, which was amazing because then it gave the students an opportunity to kind of lead in worship.
Yeah, that's great.
So
Very wonderful.
that was really great, and that's when I kind of was like, okay, is this something that I want to do? But it all came back to, I think, the sense of I'm not good enough.
Mm.
Of like I've messed up in my life.
Mm.
So who would want to have me as their leader? Even though I'm not the leader, God's the leader.
Mhm.
I'm the person up on the stage
Mhm.
talking to them about
Mhm.
why they should,
Let me
God.
try to understand this.
Yeah.
So, are you talking about the flaws or weaknesses that all of us
Yeah.
has?
Yeah.
It wasn't about the not having the confidence to be in front of a microphone.
No.
It was more like I'm a flawed
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And I am a weak-willed person.
Yeah.
Didn't Paul say that? The Apostle Paul?
Yeah.
You prefer the Apostle Paul or Saint Paul?
The apostle.
The Apostle. No, I wasn't sure if that's reformed. Did they use an extremely formal language?
No.
Okay, no, okay. So I think there's a biblical verse, right?
Yeah.
And he says, I think, I don't know if the same section, he says the things I plan on doing I'm unable to do, and the things that I don't plan on doing I end up doing them.
Yeah.
So didn't any scripture encourage you to just believe in that we all are sinners?
Well, actually, it was I thought that I would be used better in a different way. I think that's what kind of God told me. Because even at the end of my senior year of high school, I had this really weird series of events about being a light. It was very weird. It was within like 2 months. I got told to be a light by like 12 different people in 2 months. And it was the same way. It wasn't like, oh yeah, you're a great person, or like, oh yeah, you made me feel. It was, you are a light.
Powerful. Yeah.
Be a light. Be the light. All these different things in 2 months, and it just kind of was like, I'm already doing this. God is already working through me right now, as I am. So instead of me devoting my whole thought process and being to that career choice, what if I'll be able to reach people who aren't going to church? What if I'm able to reach people who have never thought about church or don't know God at all because I'm not in the church, because I'm outside of the church? I'm working with people. I mean, entertainment, that's that's a majority of people who are not Christian.
Yeah.
If not agnostic or atheist. So like, what an opportunity to be able to work with people who majority of them don't know God. And yet I get to be the light. I get to be the person who, hey, wait, you're a Christian? That doesn't make sense. You're supposed to hate me. I'm gay.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
yeah.
Where did we get that from? You know?
Yeah.
I get to break those stereotypes. I get to break that stigma.
Yeah.
I went to college in North Carolina. Everybody said, "You're not from New York. You're too nice." I said, "New Yorkers aren't bad people."
Right.
You know? That's
It's
kind
just
of
an
like
image.
Yeah. That I felt was more of the call of, don't become something that then you're just constantly reinforcing. Become something that you're now breaking every single stigma you can around that. And especially even as a man who, I mean, I have muscles, so people will see me and go, "Oh, he must be macho man. You know, he must be hard and tough." No, I cry like a baby all the time. And that's part of the reason why my girlfriend loves me, is because I want to be the person to break that. You know, I don't want to be full of myself. I don't want to be that kind of thing. I want to be vulnerable, soft, caring, you know? So
you want to be all that Jesus has taught us to be. Right?
Yeah.
And you follow the Bible. We're going to back to this, the light and the salt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's in the book of Matthew. Right?
Yeah.
The Gospel of Matthew. And a lot of us struggle. We have talked about this on the show. That for a lot of us, discernment process or receiving a call or a shift in the call is something not easy, not clear.